You were only 7 when you realized you had to decode the energy of a room before you dared to speak. Your mother's silence became a complex dialect you were forced to master. Peace wasn't a given. It was your responsibility. And childhood became a movie you watched other kids star in from the sidelines. You didn't grow up fast because you wanted to. You were drafted into a psychological role that no child should ever hold. It left you with a specific set of traits that most people can't wrap their heads around, rare qualities that modern psychology is just beginning to define. They aren't all easy to carry, but they are all significant. So, if you were the kid who had to be the adult before you were ready, this is how that experience reshaped your mind. If this resonates with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. You aren't walking this path alone. Now, let's look closer. Psychology calls what you went through parentification. It's the reversal of roles where a child becomes the emotional anchor for the very adults who were supposed to be protecting them. When this happens during your formative years, it does more than just hurt. It fundamentally rewires how your brain interprets safety, intimacy, and your own value. But there's a side to this that most people overlook. That rewiring created something unique in you. First, you developed hypervigilant empathy. You can read people with a precision that borders on frightening. You walk into a space, and within seconds, you've identified who's frustrated, who's masking, and who needs to be handled. You didn't ask for this superpower. It was a survival mechanism. While others listen to words, you've learned to translate micro-expressions, shifts in tone, and the heavy silence between sentences. You became fluent in the unspoken because your safety depended on predicting an adult's emotional explosion before it happened. While this makes you an amazing friend or partner, it's also exhausting. You can't turn it off. You're still scanning for threats that aren't there, managing emotions that aren't yours to carry. Your nervous system hasn't learned the difference between caring for someone and just trying to survive them. Second, you are hyper-independent, but not for the reasons people think. You don't skip out on asking for help because you're arrogant. You do it because, deep down, you learned that needing someone is dangerous. To you, vulnerability feels like a precursor to abandonment. When you were the one holding the family together, there was no one to lean on, so you built walls so high you can't even see over them anymore. You're the person everyone calls in a crisis, yet you face yours alone. The tragedy is that this isn't true independence, it's isolation. Real independence includes the choice to rely on others, but you feel like you don't have that choice because your past taught you that support is always conditional. The world calls it strength, but psychology knows it's often just avoidant attachment masquerading as resilience. Third, you possess a borrowed maturity. People always told you that you were so wise beyond your years. But that maturity wasn't a natural growth. It was a theft. It was taken from the childhood you never got to have. You learned to talk, think, and comfort like a grown-up. But underneath that performance is a child who never got to be messy, reckless, or carefree. Now, as an adult, you feel a strange disconnect. You can manage a boardroom or a family crisis, but small joys feel alien to you. Relaxing feels wrong because your nervous system only has one setting: on. You can't go back and fix those skipped stages, but you can grieve them, and in that grief, you can start to reclaim the parts of yourself you had to leave behind. Fourth, your boundaries are fueled by guilt. Even now, saying no feels like a betrayal. Taking time for yourself feels like you're abandoning everyone else. Because your boundaries were ignored as a child, you learned to shrink yourself until you were small enough to be worth keeping. This leads to boundary confusion, where you can't tell where your feelings end and someone else's begin. You soak up their moods and problems until you're drowning in resentment. But boundaries aren't meant to be walls. They are the space where you finally get to exist without having to fix anything or disappear. Finally, you carry the witness wound. You see the patterns and the hidden pain in others that everyone else misses. You understand the human heart because you had to study it to stay safe. You know the sound of a silent plea for help. This makes you powerful, but it means you feel everything. You often forget to witness your own life because you're too busy watching everyone else's. Here is your permission. You don't have to save the world. You don't have to be the emotional archaeologist for every person you meet. You can choose to show up for yourself first. You aren't broken, and you aren't too much. You are a survivor of something that shouldn't have been survivable. The child you were deserved a protector, and the adult you are deserves to finally rest. Healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about finally letting that inner child come home. You grew up way too fast, but you're still growing, and this time, you're the one in charge. If you found value in this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more. Would you like me to focus on how to start setting those boundaries in a future video?